A focus on the book of the law of Moses would also keep Israel from becoming enamored with the gods of the Canaanites. We have, there again, we have our gods too. Whether you think you do or not. You might not call them a god, but how many times do you know that people miss church or something because of an event that's going on? Anytime you put anything above God, that's a god. Because it was more important to you to do that than it was to be of God. I'm not saying you can't go on vacation. I'm not saying that because your child is graduating high school or college, you shouldn't go. I'm not saying none of that. But I'm saying if you sit at home and watch NASCAR because it's a big time race, yeah. Or you sit home and watch Super Bowl, which you don't play during church, but I mean, if you would, instead of going to church, there's just other things that you put in front of God that you shouldn't. Because I'm going to tell you what, when you give up stuff like that and come to church instead, God will bless you. Amen. It might be a blessing that you just heard one of the best songs you ever heard. To me, that's a big blessing. Have you not sat under Glenn and Willie and Tim long enough that you've come in here and they give you a sermon and just you walked out here and you floated on the air? Or some of the speakers we've had, like Ron Guffey, come in here. I remember I only got to see Brother Otis Gerald one time, and I can still remember his message. How much his message touched my heart. I can still remember Jonathan Alford's last message he preached here. Because it touched me that much. Glenn's sermons touch me every Sunday. But there's times you'll have people come from the outside. Would I trade them for Glenn? No, I would not. But their message touched my heart. See, that's why I'm saying, if you choose something overcoming, the blessing you might miss was the good sermon you could have heard. Specifically, they would not call on the gods, swear by them, serve them, nor bow down to them. The Canaanites attributed the abundance of the land to their gods. They were convinced that their gods brought the rains and that grew the crops that brought prosperity. Those Canaanites who remained in the land would also be convinced that their gods must be more powerful than the Jehovah. I think about that, and I think about, was it Isaiah that dug the trench around the altar? And he told them if their gods were that powerful, would have their gods light the fire. And they prayed and everything. And he laughed at him and he told him, he said, well, your God must be asleep. And he had them dig trenches around the altar. Y'all remember that story? And he had them to fill the trenches full of water. And had them to dump buckets of water on the wood. And he prayed to God, and God sent a hailstone down. Ignited everything. That kind of reminded me of that. I mean, he laughed at it. He was making fun of them. I thought that was really a good testimony, how he made fun of them. Otherwise, he would have used his people to kick them out of the land. Those convincing arguments were directly countered in the book of the law if the Israelites would just read it and live by it. Exposed to the book of the law would cause the Israelites to cleave unto the Lord. The idea was to the ally with the Lord or to identify with his side. His word would be convincing for Israel. It would affect their hearts and minds so they would want to be on God's side and serve him exclusively. Joshua repeated the fact that God had served them faithfully. A relatively inexperienced Israelites had invaded a land of giants, well-fortified cities, and well-trained armies. To the Canaanites' surprise, Israel had won staggering victories over its foes. Joshua reminded the people, no man hath been able to stand before you until this day. Such power would always be theirs if they would be faithful and obedient to the Lord. and it will always be ours. As long as we serve the Lord, put the Lord first, and love the Lord, He'll always give us victory.